So let's talk about authenticity as an oppressive narrative. So I see this issue of authenticity come up in therapy sessions a fair bit. There's this pressure to be authentic, whatever that means, but with some fairly fixed ideas of what it means. And it frequently comes up in the context of interpersonal relationship dynamics. So where people are they're feeling bad that they aren't being authentic enough. And what they often mean by that is that they aren't disclosing enough personal information, or they're not being direct enough about what they think or feel, or they can't set good boundaries for themselves. And most of the time when we unpack this, we come to understand that there is a significant power difference and a lack of safety in the dynamic, which actually means that authenticity, as defined before, is actually risky. And guerrilla tactics are kind of called for in those interactions. Now, this is particularly the case when dynamics of systemic oppression are in play in the interpersonal dynamic. So that could be interactions that are happening between people of different genders, races, ages, abilities, citizenship status, etc., where there is a significant difference in privileges and protections based on identity. So there are lots of authenticity narratives that are problematic when we consider them in light of sort of dynamics of systemic oppression. But to keep it kind of shortish, I'm just going to sort of grab three that are all over the internet in really problematic articles about authenticity and that I see come up in sessions a lot. So there are authentic people don't fake their feelings, authentic people don't worry about pleasing everyone, and authentic people apparently don't lie. So all three of these are actually commonly used and effective strategies for reducing risk in interpersonal dynamics that are characterized by unequal power, whether that power is personal, physical, or systemic power. So accusing someone of not being authentic when they are engaged in strategies to keep themselves safe or in a job or whatever this is, it's obviously a strategy to maintain an inequitable distribution of power, resources, and safety. But when people criticize themselves in their own inner dialogue in this way, we could say that that's an expression of internalized oppression. And if someone is actually criticizing you in this way and they have more structural privileges than you, then like red flag. And even if they don't have more structural privileges, it's just a bit ill. Like, I don't know, I'm more of a fan of curiosity than criticism and kind of coming at people as being inauthentic rather than asking them, how are you going? Or how's this dynamic going? Just, yeah, not a fan. So if this kind of idea floats your boat and you want to check out more authenticity tropes, sort of in dominant culture, some questions that can help analyze the narrative can include, would it make someone more vulnerable and therefore more at risk of dynamics of bias, discrimination, and domination? For example, if a person of colour pointed out racist behaviour in the workplace, would this make them more vulnerable? Yes, it would. Doesn't mean they should or shouldn't do it. I'm not saying that, but definitely it increases vulnerability. Another thing to think about is what social groups get asked to do this thing more than others. So like being authentic in general is definitely targeted much less towards cisgendered men than any other gender, particularly women. So another sort of line of query in terms of analysing authenticity tropes, and maybe many others, right, is what social group does the narrative serve? Which group will benefit from knowing this information? What could they do with it? What have they done with it in the past? So in the gender example, like men benefit from women feeling more pressure to be authentic because it's one way to get women to do more emotional labour. So that's, one example of that. There's so many, of course. Now, I'm not saying that certain kinds of authenticity aren't important, and it is really important for people to have places and relationships in their lives where they feel safe and relaxed to be fully themselves. My point is just that when we're talking about concepts of authenticity, we have to consider them through a lens of privilege and power, probably like most things, really. So, yeah, that's my quick take on authenticity and oppression.